And today, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation released an updated photo of Summer Wells. Take a look. This is the new age progression photo, side by side with the original photo.
The mist still hangs heavy over the ridges of Hawkins County, Tennessee. It settles in the hollows around Beach Creek, a quiet blanket over a place that has known a singular, piercing silence for over 4 years. This is the story of Summer Moon Utah Wells, a little girl who vanished from the front yard of her home on a June evening, and the haunting, unresolved echo her disappearance has left behind. It is a story not just of a missing child, but of an investigation that has twisted and turned, touching distant properties and digital frontiers, leaving a community and a nation waiting for a single, definitive answer. It was Tuesday, June 15, 2021. The day was winding down at the Wells family home on Ben Hill Road. Summer, just 5 years old, was last seen outside, near the family's residence. The details of those initial moments are the foundation of everything that followed. She was reported missing around 6:30 p.m. What began as a frantic family search exploded into a massive official response. The Hawkins County Sheriff's Office, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and the FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team descended on the rugged terrain. They were joined by hundreds of volunteers from the community and beyond, their faces etched with determined worry. The search was immense and heart-wrenching. Drones buzzed over the dense woodland, their cameras scanning for a flash of color. K-9 units tracked through underbrush, their handlers hoping for a scent. Dive teams meticulously searched ponds and waterways, the murky water holding unspeakable fears. For days, then weeks, the effort was all-consuming. Flyers with Summer's smiling face papered the region, from gas station windows to tree trunks along country roads. The nation watched, hoping for a miracle. But as the scale of the search gradually diminished, a colder, harder reality set in. Summer Wells had seemingly disappeared without a trace. The investigation, however, never stopped. It moved from the woods to the lab, from the field to the interview room. Law enforcement officials spoke of following thousands of tips, of executing numerous subpoenas and search warrants, of analyzing digital evidence from phones and computers. The family was interviewed, their backgrounds examined, their movements scrutinized. The case, as the authorities consistently stated, was active. But to the public, it felt like it was receding into the dreaded realm of the cold case, another tragic file among too many. Then, in November of 2025, a sudden and jarring development reignited the flickering embers of the case. With little prior announcement, agents from the TBI and the FBI converged on a property. This was not in the immediate vicinity of the Wells home. It was a location approximately 9.5 miles away, in the 3500 block of Van Hill Road in Greenville. The news broke cautiously, a formal confirmation that a search was underway based on a lead. The property was described as a 27-acre parcel, the only one in its block. It was owned by a man named Paul Hill, an elderly figure with no criminal history and a solid reputation in his community. The connection, when uncovered by diligent online researchers and community members, was tangential but intriguing. Paul Hill was the uncle of a man who had lived on Ben Hill Road, in the same general area as the Wells family, at the time Summer disappeared. It was a thread, a possible link between a point A and a point B that had always seemed disconnected. The search itself was methodical and, to outsiders, silent. Officials offered no details on what prompted it or what, if anything, was found. They simply reaffirmed that the investigation into Summer's disappearance remained open and active. This purposeful silence, while standard investigative procedure, created a vacuum. And in that vacuum, speculation rushed in. The public's focus inevitably turned, as it often does in prolonged tragedies, toward the family. The Wells family's grief was raw and visible, yet some of their actions became subjects of intense debate and analysis in the court of public opinion. Their interactions with media were sporadic and sometimes tense. One particular incident, captured on cell phone video and disseminated across social media platforms, became a flashpoint. It occurred at a community event meant to honor the missing, where a Christmas tree was decorated with photographs of lost loved ones, including Summer. During this gathering, an emotional confrontation unfolded. Summer's father, Don Wells, admitted to removing missing person flyers of his own daughter that had been posted in the area. His explanation, offered in the heat of the moment, was one of raw anger and frustration, anger at feeling persistently accused by the community and the swirling rumors. This admission struck many as inexplicable. To others, it was the desperate act of a man broken by a unique and unbearable torment. The incident fueled endless online discussion. Comment sections and dedicated forums divided into camps. Some saw the behavior as a red flag, a sign of something deceptive. Others defended it as the unfathomable reaction of a parent living a nightmare no one should ever have to endure. The family's subsequent decision not to speak publicly about the November 2025 search only deepened these divisions. Was this on the advice of legal counsel? Was it a protective instinct? Or was it something else? The questions hung in the Appalachian air, heavy and unanswered. Amidst this, another puzzling layer emerged, one that shifted the gaze from the local hills to the digital corridors of federal power. The FBI had been a part of the Summer Wells investigation from its earliest hours. Their experts had assisted with technical analysis. Their agents had walked the grounds of the Van Hill Road property. Their involvement was confirmed and concrete. Yet, observers noted a curious discrepancy. On the FBI's own national website, a dedicated portal for kidnappings and missing persons, the case of Summer Wells was not listed. Other missing children from Tennessee were featured prominently. Sebastian Rogers, a teenager who vanished from Hendersonville in 2024, had a detailed page announcing a substantial reward for information. Other children from across the country were similarly showcased. This absence sparked a different kind of theory. Why would the FBI not utilize its most powerful platform for national exposure in Summer's case? Official sources do not explain the criteria for such postings. Some online voices speculated that the omission was strategic, that perhaps the nature of the investigation had shifted in a direction where a public tip line might be counterproductive, or that the agency believed the answer lay closer to home and not in a national audience. Others saw it as a simple, heartbreaking oversight. Regardless, the effect was the same. It added to the growing perception of the case as an enigma wrapped in a mystery, a puzzle where even the tools of resolution seemed to be applied inconsistently. The narrative of Summer Wells is now a tapestry woven from multiple threads. There is the thread of the initial disappearance, a moment of terrifying simplicity. There is the thread of the prolonged investigation, a marathon of forensic work and dead ends. There is the thread of the 2025 search, a sudden detour to a distant property connected by the faintest of strings. There is the thread of the family's public journey, a walk through grief under a microscope. And there is the thread of the federal response, present yet partially hidden. These threads do not yet converge on a clear picture. They twist and run parallel, sometimes tangling. The central truth remains that a little girl is missing. The central hope remains that she will be found. The central demand of the public is for resolution, for clarity, for an end to the painful not knowing. The case of Summer Wells stands as a solemn reminder of how a single event can fracture time into a before and an after. It shows the immense power of community in the face of tragedy, and the profound challenges of sustaining attention in a world of constant noise. It highlights the difficult balance law enforcement must strike between operational secrecy and public accountability. And perhaps most painfully, it illustrates the human need for narrative, for a story that makes sense of the senseless, even when the facts refuse to cooperate. The mountains of Hawkins County keep their silence. The posters may fade and the news cycles may turn, but the question endures, as persistent as the Appalachian mist: where is Summer Wells? Until that question is answered, the story is not over. It is simply paused, waiting for the next piece of evidence, the next break in the trees, the next clue that will finally lead her home. The investigation continues, a silent engine running in the background, and a world still watches, hoping for the light to break through.